All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Wyatt Coverdale. Sorry for the delay on this one. I had to do some stuff, get some stuff sorted. Um, so, just okay. First of all, I see that there's nobody here, so I'm just going to start talking about what the thing is immediately. um, so basically, you can guess by the title of this video what I'm going to talk about. Everything is infinite. Everything is inevitable. Everything is inevitable because everything is infinite. Let me explain. So, my entire philosophy is based around the idea that everything, and that's a very strong emphasis on everything is infinite. This means time, space, material, consciousness, law, everything that you can think of. And also all things which you can't think of, because there are infinite things which you can't think of, because, well, everything is infinite. Um, I have this theory that all the things which we've identified in philosophy, they're only things which are local to us because we're seeing from this perspective. And there are an infinite number of things that aren't local to us. Now, I'm not even going to talk about the non-local things because literally I can't. I'm seeing from this perspective, and so are you, most likely, if you're seeing this video. Um, so we're just going to stick to what we can see and not worry about the other things. Sorry if you hear the baby crying in the background. So everything is infinite. Uh, I would define the things which we can see locally as time, space, material, consciousness, and law. So time is infinite in the terms of length; it always exists. Velocity, it's going infinitely quickly. In direction, it's moving in all directions because really there isn't a direction of time. You see, if the length is infinite, then it doesn't necessarily have a length. It's happening all at once. So infinity in a way is equal to zero. We're going to see a lot more of that throughout all this. If sorry if you hear my mother. Anyway, so because the length of time is infinite, that means that everything is inevitable. That means that everything has to happen just for that reason. If time is infinite and infinite things happen within time, which I'll get to in a minute, then that means that everything must be inevitable. There has to be something which happens. It's unlikely with our current science that a soda can appear right here in the air with me. But inevitably, somewhere in the universe, be it within time or space or reason or anything, that's happening. Actually, it is happening. It's within the mind. It's right here. Um, then it's infinite in velocity, which is, the speed which time moves in. Uh, if if time is infinite in velocity, like if time is moving infinitely fast, then everything would be happening at the same time. So really, there is no velocity. So we've already gotten down to two things: everything is inevitable, and everything is happening at the same time. Then the direction of time. That is also infinite. What do I mean exactly by this? Well, people say that time moves in a sort of linear sense, like from here to now we are moving. But here's a question: what if time goes like this? Ooh. That's what. How could we conceive that? We probably could, assuming that we're having this conversation. But it'd be pretty damn hard to, and we don't know how to begin with it. So we can assume that time is infinite in direction as well. It's moving in all directions, and once again, therefore, it's moving in no directions. Time doesn't have a dimension; it sort of just fades infinitely fast for an infinite amount of time. That's all I really have to say on time. Now, space. Um, space would be infinite, and by space I mean like the realm which consciousness and material exists in. Space would be infinite in form, which is, shape, size, uh, distance, etc. So it would be infinite in the size and shape of itself, which means it has no size and it has no shape. It's both a void and the singularity at the same time. It's kind of weird to think about, but if you think of it for long enough, it eventually makes sense. And then there's direction of space, which means, the dimensions of space. There's 0, 1, 2, 3, which we exist in, fourth, 5, etc. Everything can move in every direction. Um, of course, we can't perceive it happening, but surely it is. Because, well, if everything is infinite, if that's what we're basing our philosophical idea of this on, then it would make sense that everything is moving in every direction constantly. And if there are infinite dimensions, that means there are no dimensions. It's another one of those things where it's both a void and a singularity at the same time. Infinity and zero at the same time. Now, with time and space put together, I would say that is what material things and what consciousness exists within time and space. Now, what's funny is without consciousness existing, we wouldn't be able to perceive material, time, nor space, nor the law which it inhabits. Consciousness sort of brings the whole thing together, if that makes sense. Um, where was I going to go with this? Crap. Hold on. Okay. So, time and space is what material and consciousness exists in. It's the form of the universe. But the thing is, if time and space are both infinite in every possible way, including the ones which we can't think of, then that would mean that it's also not infinite in every way. They're a singularity. It seems like I'm repeating myself. That's because mostly I am, but I'm doing so to try and give you guys clarity on what exactly I mean. So, okay, we've got that down. Then there's material. If we were saying that material was infinite in every way, that would mean material would be infinite in amount, how much of something there is, which means technically everything in the universe never well, it doesn't never expire because there is law within our local understanding of it. But everything is what's the word that I'm looking for? It's just infinite in supply. There will always be an abundance of everything because everything exists. How can I say this? I'm trying to look for the word here. We will always have enough of something because there's infinite of something around. That's the best I can say. Trying to think of a word, can't think of it right now. I'm kind of just in a talk mode. So material would be infinite in amount within space. Material would be infinite in variation, which means there will always be different kinds of materials on different wavelengths and everything throughout all of conceivable space and time. There is never an end to how many elements there are on the table, if that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to say here. Is there will always be another form of something if everything is inevitable. So there will always be variation in the universe between things. There could be there could be fire somewhere in the universe that you could hold as if it were a solid, is what I'm trying to say. Something within this conceivable universe that exists, because something within this conceivable universe, it's inevitable that it exists. Physics sort of breaks there. And then material would be infinite in form. Now, form would be, size, shape, etc. So everything is sort of, how would I say this? Everything that is material would be infinite in size, which means everything sort of overlaps each other as if they're fields. And everything would be infinite in shape too, because if if space has infinite dimensions and it's inevitable that everything follows every dimension, then it would be infinite in shape. Only the shape which we are able to perceive is the ones which we pick up. And then there's consciousness, which is awareness, the ability to uh, sort of be aware of sensations and cognitive abilities. Uh, there's sensation, which is the perceived universe, which is you know what you feel and what you see, what you taste, the qualia of everything, the qualia and the emotions. And then there's cognition, which is what you think, what you use to have thoughts, how you piece things together, uh, the sort of pattern recognition which sensation follows. Uh, with material and consciousness together, that sort of creates what exists within time and space. Uh, so I'll have to come up with words for these things. I have been working on a conlang lately. This is off topic, by the way. I've been working on a conlang. I need to come up with words to like fit all this in. But we have time and space in one group, material and consciousness in the other group. One exists within the other. And then there's law, which sort of governs in quotations material and consciousness. It's it's what makes material and consciousness predicts the or act the way it does. So there's reaction between things, reactions between material and material, reactions between one conscious entity and the other, which is either communication or really anything else. Um, and then there's limitation, which is everything having a certain form that can be perceived and a perception which can pick up on that form and no other, or a limited ability to move or be at a certain mass or speed. Um, that's really my breakdown of the universe: time, space, material, consciousness, and law. They're all infinite, and they aren't the only things which exists, because there are infinite things which exist, but they are the things which we can pick up locally in this universe, which we perceive, which we are able to perceive. Uh, that raises the question: why are we limited? Why are we limited to seeing only these things? Why are we limited to our form of physics and our form of perception and our ability? Why is the universe the way it is? My theory is that we're limited because we see from a human's perspective. And the reason why we're seeing from a human's perspective is because we have to. Hear me out on that. We have to because, assuming there's infinite probability, assuming everything has to happen, well, this would be one of the things that's happening, is your my experience. The reason why this is happening is because it just is. It's the way the universe works. We are limited and finely tuned to see this version of reality and not the others that are within, or really an indescribable form around it. We are limited to this form that we can see and this perception that we have and these mathematics and these physics, because probably due to probability we have to. It's one of the things that can exist, and so it exists. That's really my whole rant on that. I was probably rambling the whole time. That probably made zero sense because a lot of this is unscripted. I was looking at a piece of paper, but I kind of, scribbled that out beforehand so I can get this to you. But overall, that's my philosophy on the subject. The reason why everything is the way it is because it have to. And why does it have to? Because it's one of the things which can exist, and so it exists. Because everything is inevitable. Everything is probable. And really, statistics sort of break when everything becomes infinite, because if there's an infinite chance that something is going to happen, well, then there's no statistic that can say that it won't. It's going to happen within time that we can perceive, at least. And most likely, somewhere in this universe, it is happening. Somewhere within the conceivable universe, because we're able to think about this happening. And so it is. But there are things which we can't conceive of, and that is the non local physics, I call it. It's the things which exist beyond us, and they are happening in the same realm that we're sort of in, only we aren't tuned to it. We are limited to this because we're seeing from a form. Why are we seeing from this form? Because we have to, etc., etc. That's the whole rant. Okay. Sorry I haven't been paying attention to the chat. I've sort of just been going off. Gage the Mage says, everything and nothing are the same thing. Yes, that's true. That's the whole purpose of non-duality. Let's say there's an infinite void of something. That would be zero, right? Well, let's say there's infinite something instead. Let's say there's infinite amount of bronze in the universe or something. And that sort of exists everywhere. Well, what would be the difference between that and a void? Because there would be nothing to compare it to. It would be just a void of bronze or a void of nothing. There, in that purpose, infinite of something and zero of anything is the same. Okay, Gage the Mage says, I wouldn't say we have to perceive through what our physical body experiences. I would say we want to see through our human experience. We want to be limited because without limitation, existence stops. Good argument, but I don't think that would be how it works. Just within my philosophy, there isn't necessarily a want and there isn't a desire. I mean, there's the delusion of it which we experience, but universally, there is nothing which sort of chooses its own path. It just happens however it happens. Nothing happens by accident, to say, but it doesn't happen on purpose. It just happens. It's the will, we'll call it. The will. For some occult terminology in here. Age the Mage says, being fun. Yeah. Existence stops being fun without limitation. Well, if this was all here just because I wanted it to be here, I would get rid of it immediately and restart. To say that there is a want of the universe implies that there is an ego of the universe, and we know that ego is a delusion, so there can't be such a thing. I don't believe in free will, to say. Or, well, I do believe in free will, I don't believe in free desire. I don't believe that we have control over anything, or anything that happens. I just think it's whatever happening, and we're following along with it. Well, wow. That already cost 30 minutes of the stream. I can't believe just rambling lets time pass like that. That's really cool. So, the reality of things is infinity. Once something starts being infinity, we stop being able to perceive it. But once something has a limitation to it, like if time stops being infinite and instead slows way, 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 way down, our brains are able to perceive it. And that's why time is so slowed down, because it is fine tuned to our limitations of it. The reason why space has a sort of, not a boundary, but a certain limitation to which we can see, why we can only see in 3 dimensions, why we can only see so far in each direction. That's also because it is fine tuned to what we are able to perceive. Not to say that what we perceive defines reality, but rather reality sort of defines what we see. Our limitation within reality defines what we are able to see. The reason why we don't have an infinite amount of material, which we do, is because we just haven't found it. That's the only reason. It's because we're limited to this little ball because we don't have the proper technology to find those sort of materials yet. Um, and there isn't 118 or 119 elements. There are infinite elements. It's just we have the 118 that we have right now, and that works for us. Um, the reason why materials have form is because, well, perception needs to limit something down to something which is other than infinity so that it can perceive it. And so this can down to this can instead of being a field which represents can. The reason why consciousness is limited to this awareness is because it's just one of the positions which awareness could be in. Uh, it is in other areas, but right now it's being this. Hmm. Let me try setting this up like a paradox. Awareness is you are experiencing everything right. Understand. Um, let me think of this. We are seeing from this awareness, but at the same time, we're seeing from other awareness. The reason why we're seeing from this awareness right now is because we're being this awareness right now and not the others, because we're limited to this awareness. And others are limited to their awareness. They're all the same awareness, but they're limited to where they are. Does that make sense? Probably not, but I'll go with it. The reason why we are limited to sensation is because, well, a body can only do so much. There's another limitation of ours. The reason why we're limited in cognition is the same way. We can't perceive infinity. We can't perceive things which aren't local to our universe, and so, that's why we think the way we do. We're limited to these laws, these versions of physics, because once again, at least I believe that they are fine-tuned to what we are able to see. We are only able to perceive these sort of physics and not the other ones that other things follow. Like, let's say we observe a star exploding. Why does that star explode in the way it does? That's because we are limited to seeing it exploding in that way. It is exploding in infinitely other different ways, but we are tuned to this version in which we see it. The other versions are happening all at the same time and all in the same place, but we can only see this part of it because of our limitations within it. And why does limitation exist? Once again, because it just has to. It's one of the things which could happen, and so it's happening. And right now, we are limited in being this. Boy, you're going to need a roadmap for that one. I'm sure it made sense to some of you, at least. That's all I have to really say on that. I just spent 30 minutes talking about the same thing. Wow. Okay, Gage the Mage says, who says we're limited anyway? Physical matter broken down to its smallest atoms contain nothing. Not space, not time, none of that. It just is. Metaphysical awareness doesn't have a limit. Well, what is that matter contained in, and what properties do that matter have? That's what I'm talking about. Wait, who says we are limited anyway? Who says we're limited anyway? Define limitation in your terms. In what way are we limited? Are you talking about every way? Well, nobody is saying that we're limited. We just kind of are. As I said, it's one of the things that could happen, and so inevitably it's happening. That's what we're experiencing right now. Physical matter broken down to its smallest atoms contain nothing. I would say they contain everything in a way. Well, obviously there can't be a smallest thing, right? Because there can't be a largest thing. It can just break down infinitely smaller and smaller and smaller. There's probably something beyond a quark, probably something beyond a neutrino, beyond a boson, everything like that. Those are probably comprised of different things. The thing is, um, where was I going with that? Crap. The thing is that they can infinitely grow larger, infinitely grow smaller. So they don't contain nothing. In a way, they sort of contain everything. Not space, not time, none of that. Yes, the material does not contain space or time. Space and time contains the material. Actually, neither contain either. I'm just speaking in a way which makes sense. It just is. Metaphysical awareness doesn't have a meta. That is true. I mean, mine awareness is the same as your awareness. It's just our awarenesses are pretending to be different people right now at different times. And the reason why you're seeing from your side instead of my side is because you are limited to that side. We are the same thing. It's just you're seeing from your side and I'm seeing from mine.
Where's the fucking wife?
Sorry about that. That was my mother. She's cranky. She's just cranky today. Sorry if I sound like a crack addict, by the way. I've been drinking Fago lately, and it's just, my God, the sugars. The sugars are crazy. Gage the Maze says, matter broken down into its most basic form is energy. Energy has physical and metaphysical forms, which makes it one of those strange mysteries scientists can't answer. The metaphysical and the physical reflect each other. Where to begin? I would say that matter and energy are no different from each other because they're both kind of the same thing. Energy creates matter, and matter is sort of just. Sorry. A linguistic definition of matter is just energy put together, really. So I see it as no different from each other. Energy has physical and metaphysical. Define physical and metaphysical. You mean material and mental? Forms, which makes it one of the strange mysteries scientists can't answer. The metaphysical and the physical reflect each other. Yeah, I'm going to need you to define physical and metaphysical for me in your terms. By the way, I'm not talking down to you, just expressing my views of it. I hope that didn't need to be clarified. You see, I believe that okay. I once made the mistake of falling into a monist perspective, which is the belief that everything is one thing. When that isn't true, there are infinite things. There isn't just one thing. And infinite does not equate to one, infinite equates to zero. So that means there are different things, but there are infinite different things. They aren't the same. They just belong to the same system. They have the same property of being infinite. Gage the Mage says, I mean physical as in what our mind and body perceive, and metaphysical as in what can't be physically measured. Okay, so yes then. It's basically material versus conscious because consciousness can't be measured. You can't measure the size of the definition of a word, can you? So I'll assume you do mean material versus mental. Oh, excuse me. Yes, scientists can't answer that because they follow material science. they, if they were philosophers, hmm, Philosophy does have its place in science, yes, because philosophy can predict things within science, like what I just said about there being uh, infinite sorts of variations between materials, infinite things which can exist. But the thing which makes them not overlap is that philosophy is more about prediction, it's more about assumption, and science is more about measurement. You can't measure the size of an assumption, but you can measure something which that assumption is based upon. So, of course, they can. Let's see here. And nothing is really a strange mystery. I don't believe that. Nothing is really hidden. It's just some things are unknown. And the reason why they're unknown is more like because we forgot rather than because we actually don't know it. The reason why it's like that is because, well, before there is infinity, which is, you know, I'm using infinity to represent us. There is zero, which is non-consciousness. Non-consciousness and consciousness are kind of the same thing, because non-dualism. There can't be a not consciousness. That's ridiculous to believe. So,
I'm gonna smack the crap out of you. Stop messing with my crap.
sorry, my mother's screaming threw me off. Where was I? Uh, hold on, let me reread this. All right, the reason why we oh babies, sorry if you can hear her crying. The reason why, God damn it, the reason the reason why it's more like we're forgetting things than we are not knowing things is because before we are limited, we know everything. Because infinity exists if consciousness does not exist. And consciousness always exists, by the way. It doesn't make sense for it not to. Like, even after this, after our physical form dies and our awareness disperses back into infinity, awareness must, absolutely must, focus on something else. Because it's inevitable that it will. And with infinity, that means time and space does not exist anymore. It would be like a flash, and then you would be something else. Basically, reincarnation, but not planned or determined. It's just you keep existing. Really, there is no life or death, consciousness or unconsciousness. There's just whatever you happen to follow. Consciousness is one of those things that follow along with it. Whew. There's a mouse that just ran past. Oh boy. I kind of went off topic there, didn't I? My point is, um, we are limited because we just are, and we are because we have to, and we have to because it was inevitable that we could. It was inevitable that we could because if time is infinite in length and everything can happen within time, then it will happen within time. So we're limited just because we are. Really, that's the answer. Kind of unsatisfying one, but as far as I have dug into philosophy so far, at least within my understanding, that's what I believe to be true. Until I'm shown evidence otherwise. Or not evidence. Evidence belongs to science. Until I'm shown an assumption which says otherwise. Then I that I cannot debate over. Oh, my babies. They keep crying. I can't go out right now because I'm kind of doing a show. I just saw a mouse run past. Adorable. I have mice, by the way, for all of you don't know, and I really love them. They aren't an issue for us because all of our cans are sealed away and everything. Like we don't really usually have food out in the open, so they're probably hungry. But they aren't really much of an issue because of that. Anyway, Gage LeMay says the question is, what is perception without a physical form? Uh, that's like asking. That's like asking what is a dream without a body to perceive a dream, or what is a dream without a brain to perceive a dream. Um, so the physical and mental is the question. What is the physical and what is the mental? How do they affect each other? How do they interact with each other, etc.? Well, that which is inside of the mind creates the perception of the physical that we have, creates the limited perception which we have. It's what makes this can a can and not a field, which represents a can. It is the thing which limits everything down into these physics, into these materials, into this space, into this time. So, consciousness is the thing which experiences the universe. The universe is the thing which consciousness is sort of formed from, if that makes sense. Not necessarily formed, but no, not even emerged out of. Consciousness never emerged out of anything because it's always been there. The That's about as far as I can go with that. Gage LeMay says the answer is it has no real will, which is kind of the point you're proving. It just exists to exist while ego thinks it has a choice. Yes, exactly. I mean, the ego is one of those delusions. I should have actually clarified. There's time, space, material, law, and then consciousness, which contains the delusion of an ego because of its limitation. Like if the reality which we perceive right now is material limitation, the ego is mental limitation. To believe that you are here and now instead of over there in that time. When really you're everywhere and you're everybody. Unlimited! Jesus, that's the word that I was looking for. My God. If material is infinite in amount, then we will always have an unlimited supply of everything. My God. The reason why we don't right now is because we can't reach it. That's all. Because we're trapped within the space that we have. Think of it like this. Think of it as like hmm. Think of it as a block with infinite layers to it. And when I say layers, I actually mean like fields which encompass the whole thing. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say layers. So think of it as a box with infinite layers. The reason why we are experiencing this layer instead of the other layers which overlap all of those is because we are limited to this layer and we are fine-tuned to this layer. Why are we limited to this layer? Because we possess the version which we are limited in. The reason why is because everything is inevitable. I've already repeated myself all the time over that. Um, Gage LeMay says, but personally, the more I've tried to dissolve ego, the less fun I've had. That is true. There's something to that. I have noticed that the closer you get to non-dual thinking, the less and less emotion that you really feel. Like the saddest part about being enlightened is that you can't feel sadness, if that makes sense. Like everything sort of becomes this one emotion, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. So this happened, and that's everything. Whether you win $1 million or whether you get kicked in the nuts and exiled, they both wield sort of the same reaction. Maybe one has like a slightly more physical reaction than the other, but beyond that, you're still in the same mental state, and that's because you know that it's just whatever is happening. There's no reason to there's no reason to freak out about it because just like going through an art gallery, you're just witnessing it. You aren't really experiencing it. You're just there in that place.
Let's leave us in their fucking face.
So yeah, Gage, you're right. Um,
Stop touching shit.
for God's sake, I'll be right back. Gotta mute myself. Sorry about that. I had to calm down my mother. She gets angered pretty easily. Um, she tends to scream, but it's fine. Anyway, so that's been my. Oh, okay, Gage Maid says something else. That's why mortality is important, because without mortality, there is no question of existence or non existence. You mean mortality as in there will be a death? Because as I said, there won't be. um, the idea that something will end is a delusion because time is infinite and so is everything that exists within time, which means that our awareness will continue existing um, through every infinite field, through every infinite variation of the universe that there is. And it will continue to experience from all the points which it has, but once it sort of fades from this one, another one will be possessed with it. Gage May says, I mean mortality as in a physical health. Oh, okay, never mind. But yes, quite literally, you won't die. I mean, this will die, but you won't die. You always exist. There's kind of no escape from it. And that's its own version of existentialism, but it's kind of nice once you get used to it.
No, don't you fucking dare.
You know what? I think I might end the stream right now. There's quite a bit going on. Um, Also, it's been 45 minutes. I feel like I've tortured you long enough with my ways of thinking. So it's been fun, everybody. Uh, by the way, I switched up the schedule. We won't be doing one every Saturday because for some reason, just something within my biology won't let me. like, I it reaches Saturday, and then I'm like, oh god, like I don't want this to become a repetitive thing, or else I won't want to do it anymore. It'll just become another part of my day. So instead, I'm going to do it every other Saturday. So we do one right now this Saturday, skip the next Saturday, and then do another live stream after that Saturday. That's how it's going to work. So it's been fun, everybody. Thanks for joining. Catch you next time. Cheers.